The stars were cold and distant in the darkness of space. Captain Lee Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of Haven's Rest Orbital Station, watching the empty void beyond his small colony world. His weathered hands gripped the metal railing as he stared into the black. Something was coming. He could feel it in his bones. "Sir, we're getting reports from the outer sensors," said Lieutenant Han So-young from her station. Her young face was pale with worry. "3 ships just jumped out of hyperspace at the edge of our system. They're not responding to our signals." Lee turned away from the window. He had been expecting this day for months. The reports from other human colonies had been getting worse. First, the settlement on Altair Prime went silent. Then New Busan stopped sending messages. Now it was their turn. "What kind of ships?" Lee asked, though he already knew the answer. "Dominion design, sir. Scout vessels. They're just sitting there watching us." Lee nodded slowly. The Galactic Dominion had been expanding for centuries, taking over world after world. They called it bringing peace to the galaxy. The survivors called it something else entirely. "Get me a connection to Earth Command," Lee said. "Full encryption." "Sir, it will take 6 hours for the message to reach Earth, and 6 more for a reply." "I know. Do it anyway." As Han So-young worked at her station, Lee walked through the corridors of the orbital station. Through the windows, he could see Haven's Rest spinning slowly below. The brown and green world looked peaceful from up here. 50,000 people called it home. Farmers, miners, teachers, doctors. Good people who just wanted to live their lives in peace. Dr. Park Ji-ho was waiting for him in the science lab. The old man looked tired, his gray hair messy from working too long without sleep. Charts and equations covered every wall. Strange machines hummed in the corners. "How long do we have?" Park asked without looking up from his work. "The scouts are already here. The main fleet will follow soon. Maybe a week, maybe less." Park finally turned around. His eyes were red with exhaustion, but there was something else there too. Determination. "I need more time," Park said. "What I'm working on, it's never been tried before. The math says it should work, but the power requirements are enormous." "Tell me again what this thing does." Park walked over to a large machine in the center of the room. It was covered in cables and blinking lights. Strange symbols were carved into its metal surface. "Quantum entanglement on a macro scale," Park said. "Every human brain has quantum particles in it, tiny things that normally don't affect anything. But if I can link them all together, create a network." "You're talking about connecting every human mind in the galaxy, not controlling them. Just connecting them, sharing experiences. When one human feels something, they all feel it. When one human sees something, they all see it." Lee stared at the machine. "That's impossible." The Dominion's best scientists would say the same thing. That's why it might work. A soft chime came from Lee's communication device. He pressed a button, and Han So-young's voice filled the room. "Captain, we're getting more signals from the outer system. Looks like the scout ships are calling for backup. And sir, we're detecting ships coming out of hyperspace. Lots of them." Lee and Park looked at each other. Time was running out. "I'll send the warning," Lee said. He made his way to the communications center. The room was small and cramped, filled with equipment that could send messages across the galaxy. He sat down at the main console and began typing. The message was simple. He had been thinking about it for weeks, practicing the words in his mind. Now he typed them out carefully, making sure each word was right. "To the Dominion High Council, we know you're coming. We know what you did to the Altair colonies. This is your only warning. Never push humans too far. Turn back now or face consequences. Beyond your comprehension." He read it over 3 times, then sent it out on all frequencies. The message would reach the Dominion fleet in minutes. It would also reach every human settlement in the galaxy, and probably a few alien worlds, too. Now they would wait to see if the Dominion would listen. On the bridge of the Dominion flagship, Iron Fist, Warlord Vexthul read the human message and laughed. His blue skin rippled with amusement, and his 4 arms gestured wildly as he showed the message to his officers. "Look at this," he said in his deep voice. "The humans think they can threaten us. 50,000 colonists against our fleet of 40 ships. 200,000 of our finest warriors." His second in command, a tall creature with gray skin and no eyes, tilted his head. "Should we be concerned, Warlord? The humans have been unpredictable in past encounters." "Unpredictable, yes. Dangerous, no. They're a young species. They've barely been in space for 200 years. Their weapons are primitive. Their ships are slow. What could they possibly do against us?" Vexthul walked to the viewing screen that showed Haven's Rest in the distance. The small world looked helpless floating in space. "Send a message back," he ordered. "Tell them they have 24 hours to surrender. If they give up without a fight, we'll let the civilians live. They can work in our mines on the outer worlds." Back on Haven's Rest, people were preparing for war. In the underground shelters, families hugged each other goodbye. Children asked their parents why the bad aliens were coming. The parents tried to smile and tell them everything would be okay. Commander Kim Da-eun was getting her patrol ship ready for battle. The Defiance was small compared to the Dominion warships, but it was fast and well-armed. Her crew of 20 were all volunteers. They knew they probably wouldn't survive the coming fight. "All systems are ready, Commander," reported her engineer. "Weapons are loaded. Engines are running hot." "Good. Remember, our job isn't to win. Our job is to buy time for the people on the surface." Pilot Yoon Tae-jin was in the fighter bay, checking his small spacecraft one more time. 12 human fighters against hundreds of alien ships. The math was not good, but math didn't always. "Tell the whole story." Medic Choi Min-ho was setting up emergency medical stations in the underground bunkers. He had enough supplies to treat maybe 100 wounded people. If the fighting was bad, there would be many more than that. Sergeant Kang Woo-jin was positioning his Marines around the colony's most important buildings. They had good weapons and strong armor, but they were vastly outnumbered. Still, they would fight. That's what humans did. Dr. Park Ji-ho was still working on his impossible machine. His daughter So-min was helping him, checking connections and running tests. The machine was almost ready, but almost wasn't good enough. "Father, the power levels are still too high," So-min said. "If this fails, the feedback could destroy the planet. If we don't try, the Dominion will destroy it anyway," Park replied. Captain Lee Hyun-woo received the Dominion's reply just as the sun was setting on Haven's Rest. The message was short and cruel. Surrender or die. He looked out at his people, preparing for war. Farmers carrying rifles, shopkeepers learning to use heavy weapons, teachers saying goodbye to their students. Lee opened a communication channel to the entire colony. "People of Haven's Rest," he said, his voice carrying to every home and shelter. "The Dominion has given us a choice. Surrender and become slaves or fight and die free. I think we all know what our answer will be." He paused, looking out at the stars where enemy ships were gathering. "We gave them a warning. They chose to ignore it. Now we'll show them what happens when you push humans too far." The warning had been sent. The choice had been made. War was coming to Haven's Rest. The Dominion fleet arrived like a storm of metal and fire. 40 massive ships dropped out of hyperspace around Haven's Rest, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. Each ship was 10 times larger than anything the humans had ever built. Weapon ports glowed with deadly energy along their sides. Warlord Vexthul stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the small human world. His 4 arms were crossed behind his back as he watched his ships move into attack positions. The humans had not responded to his surrender demand. That was fine. He would enjoy crushing them. "Begin the bombardment," he ordered. "Target their orbital station first, then their cities." On Haven's Rest orbital station, Captain Lee Hyun-woo felt the first impact shake the entire structure. Red lights flashed everywhere as his crew tried to keep the station running. Through the windows, he could see plasma bolts streaking through space like deadly rain. "Shields are failing," shouted Lieutenant Han So-young from her station. "We've lost power to Sections 7 and 8. "All civilians to the escape pods," Lee ordered. "Get them to the surface now." Another blast hit the station. This time, Lee could hear metal tearing apart somewhere below them. The artificial gravity flickered, making everyone float for a few seconds before slamming back down. "Sir, the Dominion is broadcasting a message," Han reported. "Put it through." Warlord Vex Thul's blue face appeared on the main screen. His voice was cold and full of hate. "Humans of Haven's Rest, you had your chance to surrender. Now you will learn why the galaxy fears the Dominion. Your orbital station will be destroyed in 10 minutes. Your cities will burn. Your people will serve us or die." Lee stepped forward and activated the reply channel. "Warlord Vex Thul, I am Captain Lee Hyun-woo. You came to our world uninvited. You threaten our families. We gave you a warning and you ignored it. Now you'll understand why that was a mistake." Vex Thul laughed, the sound echoing through space. "What can you possibly do to stop me, human?" "You're about to find out." Lee cut the communication and turned to his crew. "Abandon station. Everyone to the surface. Prepare for ground defense." Commander Kim Dat-yoon was already in space with her. Patrol ship Defiance. Around her, 11 other human fighters spread out in attack formation. Ahead of them, hundreds of Dominion interceptor craft were launching from the big ships. "This is Commander Kim to all fighters," she said over the radio. "Remember, we're not here to win. We're here to buy time. Every second we keep them busy is another second for the people below." "Understood, Commander," came the replies from her pilots. The space battle began with a flash of weapons fire. Human plasma cannons were smaller than the Dominion guns, but they were faster and more accurate. Kim's ship danced between enemy fire, her weapons cutting through alien fighters like a sword through silk. Pilot Yoon Tae-jin was right behind her, his fighter spinning and diving through the chaos. His shots were perfect, each one destroying an enemy ship. But for every alien fighter they killed, 3 more took its place. "Commander, we're losing fighters 4 and 7, reported one of his wingmen. "Enemy numbers are too high." "Keep fighting," Kim replied, even as her own ship took hits. "Every ship we destroy can't attack the surface." On the planet below, the first Dominion drop pods were falling from the sky like burning meteors. They crashed into the forests around Haven's Rest colony, each one carrying 50 alien soldiers. Sergeant Kang Woo-jin watched them land from his position on the colony's outer wall. His Marines were spread out along the defensive line, their weapons ready. He had fought aliens before, but never this many. "All squads, this is Sergeant Kang," he said into his radio. "Enemy ground forces are landing in sectors 3, 5, and 7. Remember your training. Hold the line." The first wave of Dominion soldiers came out of the forest like gray ghosts. They were tall and thin, with long arms that ended in sharp claws. Their weapons fired bolts of red energy that could cut through metal. "Open fire!" Kang shouted. Human rifles barked to life, sending streams of bullets into the alien ranks. The first line of attackers fell, but more kept coming. So many more. In the underground medical center, Medic Choi Min-ho was already treating the first wounded. Burns from energy weapons, cuts from flying metal, broken bones from explosions. His small team of doctors and nurses worked as fast as they could. "We need more blood plasma," called out Dr. Song from across the room. "And more burn treatment gel." "Use what we have," Min-ho replied, his hands covered in blood as he worked on a wounded Marine. "More supplies won't matter if we don't survive the next hour." Above them, the sound of battle was getting closer. Explosions shook dust from the ceiling. Children were crying in the deeper shelters, and their parents tried to comfort them with lies about how everything would be okay. Dr. Park Ji-ho was still in his laboratory, working on his quantum device. His daughter, So-min, was helping him connect the final power cables. Outside, they could hear the sounds of fighting getting nearer. "Father, the power readings are off the charts," So-min said, fear in her voice. "If this device fails, the energy release could kill everyone in the colony. If we don't try, the Dominion will kill them anyway," Park replied, his fingers flying over the control panel. "Help me with the final connections." The laboratory shook as an explosion went off nearby. Through the window, they could see Dominion soldiers running through the streets. Human defenders were falling back, fighting building by building. Commander Kim Da-yoon was still fighting in space, but her ship was badly damaged. Half her weapons were gone, and her engines were failing. Around her, only 3 other human fighters were still alive. "All fighters, this is the commander," she said, her voice calm despite the chaos. "It's been an honor flying with you." She turned her ship toward the largest Dominion cruiser and pushed her engines to maximum power. Her ship accelerated toward the enemy, weapons firing until the very end. The Defiance hit the alien cruiser's communication array in a ball of fire and metal. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from the planet's surface. Kim's sacrifice knocked out the Dominion's main communications, but it also meant the humans had lost their last ship in space. On the planet, Sergeant Kang's defensive line was breaking. His Marines had fought bravely, but they were outnumbered, 50-1. Alien soldiers were in the streets now, moving toward the colony's center. "Fall back to the inner perimeter," Kang ordered. His arm was bleeding from an energy bolt, but he kept fighting. "Protect the civilians at all costs." Pilot Yoon Tae-jin's fighter had been shot down during the space battle. He managed to crash land near the colony, but his ship was destroyed. Now he was fighting on foot with a rifle, helping the Marines hold the line. "Sergeant Kang, this is Yoon," he said into his radio. "I can see Dominion heavy weapons moving up from the south. They'll break through our line in minutes. Then we make our last stand here," Kang replied. Warlord Vexthol was watching the battle from his ship's bridge. The humans were fighting harder than he had expected, but the outcome was certain. His forces controlled the orbital space and were winning on the ground. "Prepare for planetary bombardment," he ordered his weapons officer. "Target the remaining human positions. Sir, our ground forces are still engaged with the enemy. Some casualties are acceptable. Fire when ready." The massive guns of the Dominion fleet began to charge with deadly energy. In a few minutes, they would turn Haven's Rest into a burning wasteland. In his laboratory, Dr. Park Ji-ho was making his final preparations. The quantum device was ready, but the power requirements were enormous. If it worked, every human in the galaxy would share the experience of Haven's Rest. If it failed, the energy release would destroy the planet. "So-min, get to the emergency shelter," he told his daughter. "I'm staying with you, Father. This is too dangerous. If something goes wrong, then we face it together." Park looked at his daughter, then at his life's work. The device hummed with impossible energy, ready to either save humanity or destroy them all. Outside, the sounds of battle were getting closer. Dominion soldiers were breaking through the last human defenses. Children were screaming in the underground shelters. The colony's defenders were making their final stand. Captain Lee Hyun-woo stood in the colony's command center, surrounded by the few remaining members of his staff. Through the windows, he could see alien soldiers in the streets. His people had fought bravely, but it wasn't enough. "Sir, we're getting reports that the Dominion fleet is preparing to bombard the planet," reported one of his officers. Lee nodded, slowly. They had been pushed as far as they could go. The Dominion had ignored their warning and chosen to crush them with overwhelming force. Now it was time to show them what happened when you pushed humans too far. "Dr. Park," Lee said into his communicator. "It's time." Dr. Park Ji-ho's hand moved to the activation switch of his quantum device. Around him, the laboratory walls shook as Dominion soldiers broke through the building's defenses. He could hear their alien voices getting closer, speaking in their harsh language as they searched for him. "Father, they're almost here," So Min whispered, her eyes wide with fear as she watched the door. "I know," Park said calmly. His finger rested on the switch that would change everything. "Are you ready?" Before she could answer, the laboratory door exploded inward. 3 Dominion soldiers rushed in, their gray skin gleaming under the lights. Their red eyes focused on the 2 humans standing by the strange machine. "Step away from the device," the lead soldier commanded in broken human language. His weapon was pointed directly at Park's chest. Park looked at the alien soldiers, then at his daughter, then at the machine he had spent years building. "Too late," he said and pressed the switch. The quantum device came to life with a sound like the universe singing. Energy flowed through its circuits in patterns that hurt to look at. The air around it began to shimmer and bend, making everything look like it was underwater. The Dominion soldiers fired their weapons, but the energy bolts curved around Park and his daughter as if they were protected by an invisible shield. The quantum field was already spreading, reaching out beyond the laboratory, beyond the planet, beyond the solar system. So Min gasped as she felt something incredible happening inside her mind. It was like a door opening to reveal a vast room she never knew existed. Through that door, she could suddenly sense other humans across the galaxy. Not just sense them, but see through their eyes, feel what they felt. On Earth, Admiral Ryu J. Sung was in a meeting with the Human Defense Council when the quantum wave hit him. One moment he was discussing supply routes, and the next he was experiencing the battle for Haven's Rest as if he was there himself. He could see through Captain Lee's eyes as alien soldiers advanced through the colony streets. He could feel Sergeant Kang's pain as an energy bolt burned his arm. "What's happening?" Admiral Ryu shouted, falling to his knees as the visions overwhelmed him. All around the meeting room, other officers were having the same experience. They could see the burning orbital station. They could feel the fear of children hiding in underground shelters. They could sense the desperation of human fighters making their last stand against impossible odds. Dr. Lee Mi-young of the Earth Science Institute was in her laboratory when the quantum wave reached her. She was studying alien biology samples when suddenly her mind was flooded with images from Haven's Rest. But unlike the others, she understood immediately what was happening. "Quantum entanglement," she whispered, her scientific mind racing even as she experienced the battle. "Someone has linked every human brain in the galaxy." On the frontier world of New Seoul, Colonel Nam Hye-jin was training new recruits when the connection hit. Through the quantum link, she saw Haven's Rest under attack. She felt the courage of the human defenders and the cruelty of their enemies. But more than that, she sensed something awakening in herself and her soldiers. "Colonel, what's wrong?" asked one of her lieutenants, seeing her stagger. "Get everyone ready for war," she said, her voice suddenly different, stronger. "The Dominion has made a terrible mistake. The quantum wave spread beyond human space, touching other species across the galaxy. The peaceful Altarian Republic felt the humans' pain and courage. The ancient ethereal collective experienced the raw emotions of a species pushed beyond its limits. Even the cold machine intelligences of the Synthetic Confederation registered the unprecedented quantum event. But the most shocked were the Dominion forces themselves. Every alien soldier suddenly found themselves experiencing human thoughts and feelings. They felt the love parents had for their children. They sensed the deep friendship between human soldiers. They experienced the overwhelming desire to protect the innocent that drove every human action. Warlord Vexthul staggered on his ship's bridge as the quantum wave hit him. For a brief moment, he saw through human eyes and felt what it meant to fight for something greater than yourself. The experience was so alien to his nature that it physically hurt. "What was that?" he demanded, his 4 arms shaking. His officers had no answer. They had felt it too. The overwhelming sense of connection, of shared purpose, of sacrifice for others. It was everything the Dominion taught its soldiers to suppress. On Haven's Rest, Dr. Park Ji-ho smiled as Dominion soldiers surrounded him. The quantum device was working perfectly, but it was doing more than just connecting human minds. It was revealing something that had been hidden in human DNA for millions of years. "You should have listened to our warning," he told the alien soldiers. Their weapons were still pointed at him, but they seemed confused, shaken by what they had just experienced. Throughout human space, changes were beginning. On Earth, Admiral Ryu Jae-sung found that his thinking was suddenly much faster and clearer. Complex battle strategies that would have taken hours to plan were now obvious to him in seconds. Navigator Shin Aira, on the exploration ship Discovery, was processing star charts when she realized she could now understand stellar movements in ways that should have been impossible. Her brain was making connections between gravitational fields and quantum fluctuations that no human had ever seen before. On New Seoul, Colonel Nam Hya-jin's soldiers were changing too. Their reflexes were getting faster. Their aim was becoming perfect. Their ability to work together as a unit was reaching superhuman levels. But the most dramatic changes were happening to the humans on Haven's Rest itself. So-min Park, standing next to her father's quantum device, was transforming into something beyond human understanding. She could see the quantum structure of matter itself. She could perceive the connections between all living things. "Father," she said, her voice echoing with new harmonics, "I can see what we really are. Humans aren't just another species. We're something else, something that was sleeping." Sergeant Kang Woo-jin, still fighting in the colony streets, suddenly found he could sense enemy movements through walls. The Dominion soldiers' thoughts were like whispers in his mind. He knew where they would move before they did. Medic Choi Min-ho discovered that his patients were healing at impossible speeds when he touched them. Burns disappeared. Broken bones mended themselves. The quantum energy was flowing through him, into others, repairing damage that should have taken weeks to heal. Even pilot Yoon Tae-jin, fighting on foot with a rifle, was changing. His crashed fighter began to respond to his thoughts, its damaged systems somehow repairing themselves and coming back online. Throughout the galaxy, ancient records were being discovered. In the great library of the Ethereal Collective, librarian Sage Morinth found texts that spoke of the Sleepers, a species that would one day awaken and reshape reality itself. The records were millions of years old, written by civilizations that had died out long before the current galactic powers existed. They spoke of a species that looked weak and primitive, but carried within them the power to guide evolution itself. "The Sleepers will awaken only when pushed beyond all limits," Morinth read from the ancient text. "When they do, they will become the gardeners of reality, tending to the quantum fields that connect all life." On Haven's Rest, the Dominion soldiers were beginning to understand what they had awakened. The humans around them were changing, becoming something that defied all known science. Captain Lee Hyun-woo walked through the battle zone, and alien. Weapons simply stopped working in his presence. So-min Park raised her hand, and the damaged buildings of the colony began to repair themselves. Metal flowed like water, reforming into stronger, more beautiful shapes. The quantum energy was allowing her to reshape matter at the molecular level. Dr. Park Ji-ho looked at the Dominion soldiers who had come to kill him. "We tried to warn you," he said. "Humans aren't conquerors. We're not destroyers. We're gardeners. We tend to life and protect the innocent. But when you push us too far, when you threaten what we love, then we become something else." The lead Dominion soldier lowered his weapon. The quantum connection had shown him what humans really felt when they fought. It wasn't hatred or bloodlust. It was love. Love for their families, their friends, their children. They fought not because they wanted to hurt others, but because they wanted to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. "What are you?" the soldier asked, his voice filled with awe and fear. So-min answered, her form beginning to glow with quantum energy. We are what this galaxy was waiting for. We are the species that will make sure war like this never happens. Again. Above them, human ships were appearing from hyperspace. Not the small patrol craft that had been destroyed, but vessels that seemed to bend space around them. Ships that looked like they were grown rather than built, their hulls flowing with patterns of light. The Dominion fleet, so confident just hours before, found themselves surrounded by something they couldn't understand. These weren't the primitive, human ships they had expected. These were something new, something that operated by rules of physics the Dominion had never seen. Warlord Vexthul stared at the approaching human fleet and felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The changes spread through human space like wildfire. On Earth, Admiral Ryu Jae-sung stood in the command center watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. Every human settlement was reporting the same impossible things. People were developing abilities that should not exist. "Sir, we're getting data from the Mars colonies," reported his communications officer. "Their mining crews are extracting ore with their bare hands. The metal just comes apart when they touch it." "And from the Jupiter stations?" Ryu asked, though he already knew the answer would be just as strange. "The engineers there are rebuilding. They're ships without tools. The metal seems to flow and reshape itself around them." Captain Oh Sung-ho of the Earth Defense Force battleship. Harmony was experiencing the changes himself. His crew of 300 were all moving and thinking, faster than should be possible. When he gave an order, they seemed to understand it before he finished speaking. "Navigation. Plot a course for Haven's Rest," he commanded. Navigator Shin Aira looked up from her station, her eyes now glowing with a faint light. "Course already plotted, sir. We can reach Haven's Rest in 6 hours using new methods." "New methods? I can see the quantum pathways through space now, Captain. We don't need to follow the old hyperspace routes. We can cut straight through dimensions that didn't exist before." Oh stared at his navigator. A week ago, she had been a normal human officer. Now she was talking about seeing things that their best scientists said were impossible. On the research vessel Discovery, Dr. Bae Dong-min was studying the changes happening to his crew. The quantum wave from Haven's Rest had awakened something in human DNA that had been sleeping for millions of years. "It's not just enhanced abilities," he reported to Earth Command through the quantum link that now connected all human minds. "We're accessing information that shouldn't exist in our brains. Knowledge about physics, about the universe, about how reality really works." His test subjects were no longer just human. They could survive in vacuum for hours without protection. They could see through solid walls. They could communicate with each other without speaking, sharing thoughts and memories as easily as breathing. Marine Corps Commander Lim Jun-ki was training his soldiers when he discovered they had become something beyond human. During a practice exercise, one of his Marines was accidentally exposed to deadly radiation. Instead of dying, the Marine absorbed the energy and used it to power his weapons. "Commander, this is impossible," said his medical officer. "According to our scans, Private Cho should be dead. Instead, he's stronger than before." Lim watched as his Marines practiced with their new abilities. They moved like liquid lightning, their reflexes so fast they could dodge laser beams. Their strength was enough to tear through armored vehicles with their hands. Fighter pilot Seo Hyo-jung was testing the limits of her new abilities in space. Her fighter responded to her thoughts now, becoming an extension of her will rather than just a machine she controlled. She could feel every bolt and wire in the ship as if it were part of her own body. "Control, this is Fighter 7, she reported. "I'm reading energy signatures I've never seen before. It's like the ship is alive." Her fighter began to change as she watched. The hull grew smoother and more organic. Weapons that had never existed before appeared along its wings. The engines started producing energy that defied every law of physics she knew. Chief Engineer Park Kyung-soo was in the engine room of his ship when the quantum wave reached him. The massive fusion reactor that powered the vessel suddenly seemed as simple as a child's toy. He could see exactly how to improve it, how to make it produce 1,000 times more energy. "This is impossible," he whispered as he began making modifications with his bare hands. The metal of the reactor bent and shaped itself according to his will, forming new components that shouldn't exist. Within hours, his ship was producing more power than the entire Earth fleet combined. But more than that, the ship seemed to be thinking for itself, anticipating what the crew needed before they asked. On the frontier world of New Seoul, Colonel Nam Hye-jin was watching her soldiers change into something beyond human understanding. They moved together like a single organism, each one knowing exactly what the others were thinking and feeling. "Colonel, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy," said her communications officer. "Every human settlement is experiencing the same transformations." "And the alien governments?" "They're terrified, ma'am. The Altarian Republic is calling for emergency sessions. The Ethereal Collective is consulting their oldest records. Even the Synthetic Confederation is expressing concern." Nam nodded. She could feel the fear of alien species through the quantum network that now connected all life in the galaxy. They were beginning to understand what humanity really was. In the great archives of the Ethereal Collective, librarian Sage Moranth was reading prophecies that were older than galactic civilization. The texts spoke of a species that would awaken. When the galaxy was in its darkest hour, "The sleepers will rise when pushed beyond all limits," the ancient words said. "They will become the gardeners of reality, tending to the quantum fields that connect all life. Where they walk, war will become impossible. Where they touch, hatred will turn to understanding." Moranth felt a chill run through his ancient form. The prophecies were coming true. Humanity was not just another species. They were the fulfillment of legends that predated recorded history. Back on Haven's Rest, So-Min Park was becoming something that transcended human understanding. She could see the quantum structure of reality itself, the invisible threads that connected every atom in the universe. With a thought, she could reshape matter, bend energy, and even touch the minds of beings light years away. "Father, I can see the truth now," she said, her voice echoing with harmonics that made reality itself vibrate. "Humans weren't created by evolution. We were designed, shaped by beings so advanced that they exist beyond physical reality." Dr. Park Ji-ho looked at his daughter, who was now glowing with quantum energy. "Designed for what purpose?" "To fix what's broken, to heal what's wounded, to guide the younger species toward something better." She gestured toward the Dominion soldiers who were still standing in their laboratory, their weapons lowered in awe and confusion. "They can't understand love the way we do. They can't comprehend sacrifice for others. But we can teach them." Captain Lee Hyun-woo walked through the battle-torn streets of Haven's Rest Colony. Where he stepped, the damaged buildings began to repair themselves. Wounded people, both human and alien, found their injuries healing when he came near. The Dominion. Soldiers who had been attacking the colony were laying down their weapons. Through the quantum connection, they were experiencing human emotions for the first time. They felt the love that parents had for their children. They sensed the deep friendship between comrades. They understood the overwhelming need to protect, the innocent that drove every human action. Sergeant Kang Woo-jin approached a group of surrendering alien soldiers. They looked at him with confusion and fear, not understanding the changes they were feeling inside their own minds. "Why do you fight?" one of them asked in broken human language. "Why do you die for others?" Kang smiled and helped the wounded alien to his feet. "Because that's what love does. It makes you stronger than you ever thought possible." Medic Choi Min-ho was treating alien wounded alongside human casualties. His healing abilities now worked on any living being, repairing damage and easing pain, regardless of species. The quantum energy flowed through him into others, carrying not just physical healing, but emotional understanding. "I don't understand," said a Dominion officer whose arm had been severed in the fighting. Minho had regenerated the limb completely, something that should have been impossible. "Why help your enemies?" "Because you're not our enemies," Minho replied. "You're just afraid and confused. We all are sometimes." Pilot Yoon Tai-jin's crashed fighter had rebuilt itself using quantum energy and his will. The new ship was unlike anything that had existed before. It moved through space and dimensions, powered by forces that the galaxy's best scientists couldn't explain. "Haven's Rest Control. This is Yoon," he reported. "The Dominion fleet is still in orbit, but their ships seem to be changing." Above, the planet, Warlord Vexthul was watching his massive fleet undergo transformations that terrified him. The ship's weapon systems were shutting down on their own. The engines were reconfiguring themselves to produce clean energy instead of destructive force. Even the hull plating was changing, becoming smoother and more beautiful. "What's happening to my ships?" he demanded. His science officer, a thin creature with multiple eyes, looked up from his instruments with wonder. "Sir, the human quantum field is affecting our technology. It's improving everything it touches, making it better, more efficient, less destructive." "Fix it." "Sir, I don't think we can. The changes are operating at a level beyond our understanding. It's like the universe itself is being rewritten. Dr. Lee Mi-young on Earth was studying the quantum data streaming in from across the galaxy. Her analysis was revealing truths that changed everything they thought they knew about humanity. "We're not a natural species," she reported to the Human Defense Council. "Our DNA contains information that couldn't have evolved naturally." The human response began with silence. Across the galaxy, every human settlement stopped what they were doing and looked to the stars. Through the quantum network that connected all their minds, they felt the pain of Haven's Rest and the awakening of their true nature. Admiral Ryu Jae-sung stood on the bridge of his flagship as the transformation completed itself. The ship was no longer made of simple metal and circuits. It had become something alive, something that responded to the crew's thoughts and emotions like a trusted friend. "Admiral, the fleet is ready," reported Captain Jo Sung-min from the new battleship Retribution. His vessel looked nothing like the human ships of old. Its hull flowed with patterns of light, and it moved through space like liquid starlight. "How many ships do we have?" Ryu asked. 200 vessels, sir. But these aren't the same ships we had yesterday. They've been improved, enhanced by the quantum field. They can do things that our old technology never could." Ryu looked out at his fleet through the viewing screen. Each ship was unique now, shaped by the personality and needs of its crew. Some looked like great birds ready to soar through space. Others resembled flowing water frozen in time. All of them pulsed with energy that made reality bend around them. "Set course for Haven's Rest," he ordered. "Maximum speed." "Sir, what is maximum speed for us now?" The navigation officer, her eyes glowing with quantum light, smiled. "We'll be there in 30 minutes, Admiral. The ships can fold space now." 30 minutes later, the human fleet emerged from folded space around Haven's Rest. They appeared not in flashes of light like normal hyperspace jumps, but like flowers blooming in the darkness, beautiful and impossible. Warlord Vexthul stared at the human fleet on his viewing screen. His 40 Dominion warships suddenly seemed small and primitive compared to the graceful vessels surrounding them. But more disturbing was what he could feel through the quantum connection. Love. The humans felt love for him and his soldiers, even after everything the Dominion had done. Not hatred or revenge, but genuine care for their well-being. It was so alien to his nature that it made him physically sick. "Warlord," said his communications officer, "the humans are broadcasting a message." Captain Lee Hyun-woo's face appeared on the screen. Behind him, the colony of Haven's Rest was rebuilding itself with quantum energy, the damaged buildings flowing back into perfect form. "Warlord Vexthul, Lee said, his voice calm and kind. You came to our world with war and destruction. You threatened our families and hurt our people. But we don't hate you for this. Then you are fools, Vexthal snarled, though his words carried less conviction than before. No, we understand now what we are and what you are. You were taught that strength comes from causing pain to others. You believe that to be powerful, you must make others weak. But this is wrong. Lee gestured to his people working alongside former Dominion soldiers to help the wounded. True strength comes from lifting others up. Real power comes from healing what is broken. We will show you. Before Vexthal could respond, something impossible began happening to his fleet. The quantum energy from the human ships was reaching out to touch the Dominion vessels. But instead of attacking them, it was changing them. Sir, our weapon systems are shutting down, reported his weapons officer. No, not shutting down. They're becoming something else. Vexthal watched in amazement as his ship's plasma cannons transformed into devices that could grow food from empty space. The missile launchers became machines that could turn asteroids into beautiful gardens. Even the armor plating was changing, becoming lighter and stronger while generating energy instead of consuming it. What are you doing to my ships? He demanded. So Min Park's voice answered him. She was no longer entirely human, her form glowing with quantum energy that made her look like a living star. We are showing you what your ships were always meant to be. Tools of creation, not destruction. I don't understand. You will. The transformation spread to the Dominion soldiers themselves. One by one, they began to feel emotions they had never experienced before. A soldier who had spent his life hurting others suddenly felt overwhelming love for a human child he was, helping to safety. A ship captain who had destroyed entire worlds found himself weeping as he understood the beauty of life he had been destroying. Commander Kim Da-eun appeared on Vexthal's bridge, though her ship had been destroyed hours earlier. She was glowing with the same quantum energy as So Min Park, her consciousness no longer bound by the limits of physical matter. How are you alive? Vexthal asked. Death is just another barrier that we've learned to cross, Kim replied. The quantum field connects all consciousness. When my body died, my mind simply moved to a new form of existence. She walked toward the warlord, and with each step, he felt his understanding of reality changing. Through the quantum connection, he experienced her memories. He felt what it was like to sacrifice yourself for others. He understood the deep joy that came from protecting innocent people. This is what humans really are, Kim said gently. We are gardeners of consciousness. We help other species grow beyond their limitations. We guide them toward love instead of hate, creation instead of destruction. Vexthal fell to his knees as the full weight of human emotion filled his mind. For the first time in his life, he felt genuine remorse for his actions. He could see the faces of every innocent person his forces had killed. He could feel the pain of every family they had destroyed. I'm sorry, he whispered, tears streaming down his blue face. I didn't know. I didn't understand. Now you do, Kim said, helping him to his feet. And now you can choose to be better. Across the galaxy, the same transformation was happening everywhere humans encountered other species. On worlds where the Dominion had established slave colonies, human ships appeared like angels of mercy. But instead of attacking the alien overseers, they simply touched their minds with understanding. Dr. Park Ji-ho, his consciousness now spread across the quantum network, spoke to every intelligent being in the galaxy simultaneously. His voice carried the wisdom of eons and the gentleness of a parent speaking to a frightened child. People of the galaxy, the age of war is ending. You have all been children, fighting over toys in a sandbox while the universe waited for you to grow up. Now your older siblings have awakened to guide you. On Earth, the transformation of human technology continued at an incredible pace. Ships that had taken years to build were growing themselves in days. Weapons of war became tools of creation. Cities redesigned themselves to be more beautiful and efficient. Pilot Yoon Tai-jin, now flying a ship that existed partially in other dimensions, visited the homeworlds of species that had been enemies of humanity. But instead of conquest, he brought gifts, seeds that could grow in any soil, technology that could heal any wound, knowledge that could solve any problem. "Why are you helping us?" asked the leader of a world that had declared war on humanity just days before. "Because that's what love does," Yoon replied. "It helps others become the best version of themselves." The Altarian Republic, the Ethereal Collective, and dozens of other galactic powers watched in amazement as their most aggressive members laid down their weapons and began working together. The quantum field was spreading understanding and empathy wherever it touched. Medic Choi Min-ho established healing centers on 1,000 worlds, training former enemies to use the quantum energy to cure diseases and repair injuries that had been considered impossible to treat. His patients included beings that had been trying to kill humans just hours before. Engineer Park So-min, now existing as pure consciousness, began reshaping damaged worlds. Planets that had been stripped of resources found their ecosystems restored. Overnight, dead worlds bloomed with new life as she guided the quantum field to repair what had been broken. The Dominion Empire became something entirely different. Warlord Vex Thul, transformed by his experience with human consciousness, began dismantling the systems of oppression his people had built. Slave worlds were freed. Conquered species were given back their independence. Weapons of mass destruction were turned into tools for building instead of destroying. "What do we call ourselves now?" asked one of his former officers. "We are no longer the Dominion." "We are students," Vex Thul replied. "The humans are teaching us how to be better, how to create instead of destroy, how to love instead of hate." Captain Lee Hyun-woo stood in the gardens that now covered Haven's Rest. The colony was more beautiful than it had ever been, its buildings grown from quantum energy into forms that seemed to sing with joy. Children of a dozen species played together under the alien sun, watched over by beings who had once been enemies. "Was this what we were always meant to become?" asked Dr. Park Ji-ho, his physical form restored by his daughter's power. "This is what the galaxy was always meant to become," Lee replied. "We were just the gardeners waiting to tend it." Admiral Ryu received reports from across human space. Every world was reporting the same thing. Former enemies were becoming friends. Weapons were becoming tools. Hatred was becoming understanding. "Admiral, we're receiving a message from the Galactic Council," reported his communications officer. "All major powers are requesting guidance," Ryu smiled. "Tell them we'll be happy to help. But first, make sure they understand one thing." "What's that, sir?"